President Trump moves to make big policy changes between the U.S. and Hong Kong. It comes after the CCP passed its so-called national security law. China's latest push on Hong Kong has sparked various responses. From humanitarian assistance to not considering sanctions, here's how different countries are reacting. The Chinese Communist regime's mass spending on other countries has many believing it's rich. But China's premier revealed over 600 million Chinese live below the poverty line. Overseas plaintiffs suing the Chinese regime over the virus now fear their families may face retaliation. One such man tells us his story. And the UK wants to form a pact with 10 nations to develop their own 5G tech in efforts to reduce dependence on China's Huawei. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. President Trump today taking heavy action in light of the CCP's encroachment on Hong Kong. He says U.S.-Hong Kong policies will be reformed to reflect the eroding freedoms of an autonomous region that's no longer autonomous enough.
The president made clear on Friday that the relationship between the U.S. and Hong Kong will change to reflect the Chinese Communist Party's encroachment on the special region.
China has replaced its promised formula of one country, two systems with one country, one system. Therefore, I am directing my administration to begin the process of eliminating policy exemptions that give Hong Kong different and special treatment.
By doing this, President Trump is moving to treat Hong Kong more like mainland China in trade, travel, and other areas. This comes after Beijing passed its so-called national security bill, a bill that would let the CCP target any activities related to supposed secession, subversion, infiltration, or sabotage in Hong Kong. Trump said all agreements would be affected with few exceptions, but besides policy changes, he pointed to punishment for Hong Kong and Beijing officials who participated in smothering the city's autonomy.
The United States will also take necessary steps to sanction PRC and Hong Kong officials directly or indirectly involved in eroding Hong Kong's autonomy and just, if you take a look, absolutely smothering Hong Kong's freedom.
Trump said the State Department will also update its U.S. travel advisory to reflect the increased danger of surveillance and punishment by the regime's security systems. He mentioned that the extradition treaty and dual-use technologies agreements would also be impacted, but he didn't go into detail. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
U.S. markets rallied after Trump held off from imposing new sanctions or tariffs on China. Investors aren't fans of the escalating trade war between the two countries. President Trump made the bombshell announcement today that Hong Kong's special trade and economic relations with the U.S. are no more. What does this mean for Hong Kong, China, and the U.S.? An expert explains.
The U.S. treats trading with Hong Kong differently than with mainland China thanks to the 1992 U.S.-Hong Kong Policy Act. Revoking that status has major implications for the city's role as an international financial center. The region is also home to many international companies' headquarters. Over 1,300 U.S. companies operate in Hong Kong. Of them, nearly 300 have their regional headquarters in the city. And over 85,000 U.S. citizens live there.
Most of these people might need to leave the city, and their leaving would mean large amounts of money and corporations will leave with them.
The revocation will also hurt China's foreign investment. Hong Kong has long been China's gateway to attracting foreign investment. It accounts for 2/3 of China's overall foreign investment inflows, but now they're at risk following Trump's announcement. The city is also a major destination for the initial public offerings of Chinese companies. That's where mainland Chinese corporations, including many state-owned firms, raise funds from foreign investors. Beijing's new law could cause Hong Kong's stock market to lose foreign investment, prompting suffering for Chinese companies. This comes as Washington is already tightening its regulations for Chinese companies to be listed on U.S. indices. The revocation also affects U.S. technology exports to the city. Currently, the U.S. is much more lenient with Hong Kong than with mainland China when it comes to exporting sensitive technology. That's in part because China remains under sanction following the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre.
Through the transfer center of Hong Kong, the Chinese Communist Party can indirectly acquire many sensitive technologies from Western countries. Many of these technologies can be used for military purposes. If Hong Kong lost its special status, this channel for the CCP to get advanced technology is basically cut off.
The United States is Hong Kong's second largest trading partner. A revocation of Hong Kong's status will unavoidably impact U.S. businesses' interests there.
So it will have an impact on the U.S., but such impact is relatively small compared with the effect on the CCP. Under the bigger picture of the U.S.-China clashes, it is actually impossible for either side to strike the other without affecting oneself. This is in fact impossible right now.
Despite rising concerns, Trump didn't mention any change to the Phase 1 U.S.-China trade deal. He also didn't comment on the possibility of stopping the free exchange of U.S. and Hong Kong dollars, which could have massive effects on both Hong Kong and China's economies. Protesters in Hong Kong see Beijing's reliance on the city as leverage to argue for their freedom. That's why many pushed the U.S. to pass the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act last year. That act requires an annual review of Hong Kong's autonomy to justify its special status. Hong Kong student activist Joshua Wong recently wrote on Twitter that if the U.S. no longer treats Hong Kong as a separate customs territory, will our economy suffer? Of course, yet the hit is necessary. For decades, Hong Kong has facilitated the influx of global capital and otherwise unavailable goods, high-tech products into China. Leaders in Beijing continue to reap the benefits of this arrangement while our freedoms deteriorate. They can't have it both ways. Reporting by Penny Zhou, NTD News.
China's latest move on Hong Kong has triggered a wave of responses, from stocking up on U.S. currency to diplomatic sympathy from other nations. Let's take a look at how the world and Hong Kong itself is reacting.
China's move to pass the draconian national security law sparked a surging demand for U.S. currency in Hong Kong. People line up outside banks and money changers to stock up on U.S. bills. They're concerned that local currency will devalue following the political unrest. Many currency exchanges have run out of supplies and have to turn away customers. Dozens of protesters gathered at an upscale mall in the city's central business district. They chanted slogans and sang to voice their discontent with Beijing.
I was born in Hong Kong, and I'm over 50 years old. The freedom we enjoyed during our era is all gone. We may be arrested just by saying Carrie Lam, step down in the future. I don't know if the San Yukling detention center will be like those in Xinjiang. This is what I'm most worried about.
Xinjiang holds some of the most isolated and cruel of all China's detention centers. Political prisoners released from there report torture, brainwashing, forced labor, and worse. One of Hong Kong's most prominent democracy activists said he will fight to the finish.
There's no other way but to fight on. I'm 72 years old. If I can sacrifice for Hong Kong, I will do so. This is my home. What I have, this place gave me. I will fight on to the last day. It will be honor if I become a sacrifice. It will be my honor.
Observers think Lai will be one of the main targets of China's new law. He owns a newspaper that is often critical of the party leaders. The UK's foreign secretary said if China doesn't suspend the repressive new law, then Britain may offer a path to citizenship for B&O passports in Hong Kong. The passport is a travel document issued to those in Hong Kong before the 1997 handover. B&O passport holders can visit the UK visa-free for up to 6 months. But the UK could extend the stay and turn it into a method of eventual citizenship. Currently, over 300,000 Hong Kongers have the passports, and almost 3 million are eligible for it. Beijing said it would take countermeasures if Britain moved to offer such a pathway from Hong Kong to the UK. Now that the new law passed, China has further tightened its grip. China's Ministry of Public Security announced it would use, quote, all efforts to direct and support the Hong Kong police to stop violence and restore order, unquote. Right now, Hong Kong has its own police system and China doesn't have enforcement powers, yet. Taiwan's president showed her support for Hong Kong by visiting a prominent Hong Kong dissident in Taiwan. He's a famous bookseller who was once detained by the Chinese regime for publishing books critical of the party's leaders. He fled to Taiwan last year.
I hope we can work together for the development of freedom and democracy while you're here. Also, I came here to learn if any of our Hong Kong friends who want to come to Taiwan or who are already here, what special assistance they'll need.
Tai said her government has formed a special working group to support Hong Kongers who flee to Taiwan. European Union foreign ministers agreed to toughen their strategy on China. The foreign policy chief said the bloc would now prepare a new EU strategy document on China. Germany's foreign minister thinks the EU should maintain dialogue with Beijing and stand united in its response to Hong Kong issues. The Australian Prime Minister said his government is not considering sanctions against China over the new security law.
At the most important political event in China, the Two Sessions, Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang said over 40% of Chinese people had a monthly income of around $140. This triggered some discussion among Chinese netizens. The comment made one netizen realize they've been deceived by the CCP's propaganda. They always believed that China was very rich. Another netizen said the Chinese regime gave $60 billion to Africa, $2 billion to the World Health Organization. He asked why the CCP always uses the country's money to become #1 in the world and doesn't use it to improve the living conditions of its own Chinese people. Another netizen weighed in on why Chinese people are so poor. He said the CCP indeed has more money now, but nobody cares for the 800 million farmers. The money first goes to greedy officials, then for expenses for officials and government projects that don't benefit the people very much, but improve the officials' image and help them get promoted. And the CCP also gives money to foreign countries, buying their support in international affairs. China has dropped its annual growth target for the first time in 30 years, but Li Keqiang says the country will be able to boost its economy without massive stimulus. One economist, He Qinglian, told Radio Free Asia the CCP has no more economic stimulus cards to play. He said the regime was so eager to get the economy moving again, it sent people back to work in February, while the pandemic situation was still very serious. There may be two reasons the CCP can't implement a stimulus plan. First is China's massive debt. According to the Institute of International Finance, China's debt has topped 300% of gross domestic product, or GDP, and now accounts for 15% of all global debt. He said the average debt held by mortgage owners in China has reached about $63,000. These massive debts are restraining consumption. The second is unemployment. Due to the pandemic, orders from overseas have dropped significantly. Many small and medium-sized enterprises are facing bankruptcy. 70% of China's workers are in these sectors. According to He's estimates, the real unemployment rate in China might now be as high as 30%. Even a stimulus plan wouldn't help. China's popular video app TikTok is moving its key functions out of China. According to Reuters, the app's parent company ByteDance hired more than 150 engineers for its California research center. It also hired a new investor relations director based in New York. The position used to go through Beijing. But sources tell Reuters cutting ties with Beijing completely is not possible, because TikTok and its Chinese sister app Douyin share infrastructure. The shift overseas comes as tensions continue to rise between China and the U.S., particularly in trade and tech. TikTok has also come under fire for security reasons. CFIUS has been cracking down on the app over potential risks to national security. There has also been concern over the privacy of children's data in the app. So will this move alleviate lawmakers' fears? Not really. Senator Marco Rubio told Reuters as long as TikTok or any other application operates in a way that gives the Chinese government and Communist Party leverage, it is impossible to separate the dangers of using such an application from the reality that the user's information could be at risk. Chinese telecom giant Huawei is under fire from world powers over security concerns. Now the UK wants to form a pact with 10 nations to develop their own 5G tech. The Times newspaper said Britain wants to form a D10 club comprised of democratic players including the G7 nations, Australia, South Korea, and India. This would reduce the dependence on China's Huawei. The Chinese regime has taken aggressive action against virus-related lawsuits and those filing them. Concerns are rising among overseas plaintiffs whose families may now face retaliation from the Communist Party. NTD Xiaohua Li explains.
Jie Lijian, a Chinese human rights activist now living in California, filed a class action lawsuit with the help of Berman Law Group. The case seeks to make China pay for its handling of the CCP virus crisis. But in retaliation, the Chinese Communist Party got a hold of his family in China, who are now at risk and facing consequences. A police car arrived at Jie's family home in China on the morning of May 13th. The police, along with the town's mayor and a local Communist Party official, broke into the house and arrested his father.
They couldn't catch me, so they took revenge on my father. It's a way to silence me in order to achieve their goal.
The police locked Jie's 70-year-old father in an interrogation room, chaining his hands to a chair. The room's air conditioner was turned up to its highest setting, and his father quickly caught a cold. Jie's 6-year-old nephew and his mother were also held for questioning. During the interrogation, the police showed Jie's father a list of names with photos. They forced him to testify on camera which names had contact with Jie.
My father has already learned that such things were planted, woven, and meant to harm others. The list included my close friends and former classmates.
Jie's father refused to cooperate. The police kept him there for over 24 hours and threatened to put him in a psychiatric hospital. While they questioned him, they also searched the house. The household's registration and ID cards were taken. Since then, Jie's family endured continued harassment. The house's electricity was cut off on the evening of May 14th. Thugs later came to break down the front door and plant firecrackers on the outside gate. They even set off fireworks aimed at the family's grain storehouse. The chaos lasted from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Jie's father didn't dare to go to sleep.
My father was furious. In the countryside, if the food stores in the granary are set on fire at this time of the year, there will be no food to eat. We have worked hard to grow this food.
Jie's father wrote a will just in case. In it, he said the regime must be held accountable if anything happens to him.
If my father disappeared or something happened that caused him to die, he declared that he would never commit suicide.
At the same time, Jie also received death threats from unknown sources. The messages encouraged him to think about the consequences of suing the Communist Party and threatened that having him killed would be easy.
If you speak up, it means there will be an arrest. It means there will be retaliation. It means someone will disappear. You may not end up alive.
But Jie says he won't give in, adding that he feels responsible for those with no voice.
There is no chance to step up, and no one dares to, under such powerful and oppressive control. The sacrifice is too great. So that's why we have the responsibility to step up given the chance and opportunity overseas.
Jie says he filed the lawsuit on behalf of Chinese citizens and the overseas Chinese community. He also says he hopes that more people will file legal complaints against the CCP. He explained that there's no getting away from the fact they concealed the virus pandemic in its early days.
Our case is a cry on behalf of the hundreds of millions who are enslaved and exploited. That's what the CCP fears the most, because the Communist Party got its start by relying on the innocent people at the bottom.
On March 17th, Jie contacted the Florida Berman legal team and signed the lawsuit authorization letter. He says the outbreak has shown the world the truth about the atrocities committed by the CCP, which has enslaved the Chinese people for more than 70 years.
I hope the Chinese people, whoever is suffering, will know about this painful matter. Let the human rights defenders know about it. Let the world know.
More relief money is on its way to the most vulnerable communities. The Trump administration has set aside another $10 billion for their struggling small businesses. It'll be lent out by community development financial institutions.
President Trump's administration announced on Thursday it is setting aside $10 billion of additional funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. This comes as part of a second funding round under the PPP. It will be lent by community development financial institutions, which work to expand economic opportunity in low-income communities. As of May 23rd, CDFIs have approved more than $7 billion in PPP loans. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said in a news release, there is bipartisan support for the move, which aims to ensure opportunities exist for small businesses in all communities to survive the pandemic. SBA Administrator Jovita Carranza said the capital was critical during the current economic challenges. PPP is a forgivable loan program aiming to sustain small businesses and jobs for their workers. It provides a buffer to help businesses during the economic downturn and be able to come out the other side intact and with staff in place.
Many New York City business owners are anxious to reopen. Some are working with officials to negotiate, while others reopen in defiance of lockdown orders. Here's how businesses are trying to stay alive as the pandemic eases and amid persisting health concerns.
Many restaurant owners in New York City are waiting eagerly for restrictions on outdoor dining to be lifted. On Thursday afternoon, some people had drinks at standing tables outside Le Ravage restaurant in Manhattan's famous Restaurant Row. Before the pandemic, the street was often filled with Broadway theatergoers.
So right now we're dealing with the mayor's office and the community board, and what's going to happen here, because it's a unique situation, we have a Restaurant Row going over here. So the intent is to safe distance. We're going to close off the street, safe distance. We're going to have, like they do at the park and all the outdoor spaces, we're going to mark out, delineate all the 6 feet circles and everything.
Owner Paul Danamiel's goal is to reopen his restaurant and the entire Restaurant Row to outdoor dining. For now, the city's only allowing restaurants to offer takeout and delivery service, but some say the city isn't reopening fast enough. Elsewhere in the city, protesters gathered outside a tanning salon that was shut down after briefly reopening. Only businesses deemed essential are allowed to open right now. Sunbelievable decided to defy lockdown orders, and residents showed their support. The police issued the owner a $1,000 fine. The owner feels officials are not giving reassuring answers for when small businesses can reopen, and that staying closed is hurting his employees. He was willing to go to jail to make a statement, but then the future of his business was threatened.
And then a call comes from the mayor saying that if he doesn't shut down, he wants him locked up and he's going to take away his health department license. Oh my God. So for communism.
As police raided the Staten Island-based shop, protesters gathered under the banner, "All businesses are essential."
New York's governor said today that New York City is on track to enter phase 1 of reopening on June 8th. He announced that 5 upstate regions will now transition to phase 2, which includes the reopening of businesses like barbershops and hair salons. The pandemic has restricted almost everyone's freedoms in the U.S., but for one nurse from Missouri, it has done the opposite.
It was the first time that I had ever seen the ocean.
Traveling to New York City marked the first time nurse Megan Lindsay had ever left Missouri. Aged 33, it's also her first time on a plane. She began working 12-hour shifts at NYU Winthrop Hospital's intensive care unit.
When I became a nurse, I always was very passionate about what it means to be a nurse, the calling of a nurse, and your duty to serve.
Her story is a contrast to the many that describe the suffering the virus has brought. She says the pandemic gave her the chance to strike out into the world, confront danger, and serve her country. Unfortunately, many of her patients were not able to overcome the virus.
Their families aren't allowed to be there with them, so I've had to stop being a nurse and step in for the family and sit down next to that patient and hold their hand so that they don't die alone.
Her 2 kids and husband, she said, are proud of her for conquering her fears. Her journey wasn't glamorous, but she says it sometimes felt like a grand adventure, from seeing the Statue of Liberty to hearing someone speak Russian to trying New York pizza for the first time. Now, at the end of her contract, Megan is unsure of what the future holds.
It did take a lot of guts and a lot of talking myself into doing it, but I don't regret it for one bit.
But for now, knows she made a big difference. French health authorities are banning hydroxychloroquine in hospitals. One doctor says it's the first time he's been forbidden from administering a drug. Our France correspondent David Vives has the story.
The French government on May 27th forbade hospitals to administer hydroxychloroquine as a treatment to patients infected by the CCP virus. Hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malaria drug used in some countries across the globe. President Trump has also supported its use as a preventative for the virus, even announcing he is taking it himself earlier this month.
A lot of doctors take it. I take it.
The ban of the drug by the French health minister follows a large observational study published in the well-known medical journal The Lancet. The study cast doubt on the efficacy of the treatment, adding there might be an increased risk of heart problems among CCP virus patients. The study, published in The Lancet last Friday, was conducted on over 100,000 patients, but it did not win the support of all scientists. In an open letter on Thursday, around 120 doctors across the globe addressed concerns regarding the statistical analysis and the data integrity of this study.
The use of hydroxychloroquine has polarized scientists since the day it was released. This treatment was founded by a French microbiologist, Didier Raoult.
Some doctors want to have the right to prescribe it. This doctor, who joined the group Freedom to Prescribe, is one of them.
I don't understand. This is the first time ever that a government forbade us to prescribe a drug. Furthermore, it's a drug that I have prescribed for 40 years.
According to her, the Lancet study did not follow the specific treatment protocol designed by Raoult.
There is a problem with studies that oppose the use of hydroxychloroquine. Raoult's treatment protocol stipulates hydroxychloroquine should be prescribed at an early stage, not when the patient is hospitalized.
Dr. Regensburg also said doctors have full legitimacy and knowledge to prescribe a drug they think can be effective, and that they should have the final word on this matter. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
A French concert violinist who's accustomed to playing for audience of 2,000 or more performed last night for an audience of 0. But he says the experience was none the worse for it.
Renaud Capuçon and his 23-person string orchestra performed Metamorphosen, a piece by German composer Richard Strauss, at the Philharmonie de Paris concert hall. It was their first concert after the lockdown.
Here, it's like a return to life. They're all really happy, the 23 soloists with me, to play again after such a long time when everything was closed. It's a bit like a sign of rebirth.
The auditorium can seat up to 2,400 people, but this time it was empty apart from 1 or 2 staff members. The orchestra members weren't required to wear masks, but had to stay seated at least 1 yard away from each other on stage. The Strauss piece is a mournful composition, and it ends on a somber note. Capuçon says that when he played it in the past, he always felt it would be appropriate if there was no applause. The outbreak now means the ending of the performance is met with silence.
It's a piece where we had always wanted to have no applause. Here it fits perfectly, because we can stay in this type of long silence, and so for this piece here, it's not disruptive.
The audience was virtual. People watched and listened at home via live stream on the concert hall's website.
People aren't spending much money right now, but they are saving a lot of it. Many believe it'll take the economy years to recover.
Consumer spending is down for a second straight month. It recorded a historic drop of over 13% in April, surpassing the previous record of almost 7% set in March. This could be a bad sign for the country's recovery. Consumer spending accounts for over 2/3 of U.S. economic activity. Getting people to spend again will be important for the country's economic recovery. Consumer confidence in the economy is critical. April's penny pinching lifted personal savings to an all-time high. People put aside a record 33% of their disposable income, compared with only 13% in March. This could mean consumers are concerned about the future of the economy. Interestingly, even with widespread unemployment, personal income was actually up 10% in April. This was thanks to stimulus checks and enhanced unemployment benefits. These programs helped as wages alone fell 8%.
The U.S. Treasury releases rules about how companies should use the federal tax credit meant to develop eco-friendly products. And CVS will test a self-driving delivery service. Here are your business briefs.
The U.S. Treasury Department is releasing rules for how companies use a federal tax credit designed to spur investment in carbon capture and sequestration. The rules aim to give investors and developers clearer guidelines for the 45Q tax credit program and ensure that projects are capturing and burying the amount of carbon they're supposed to. CVS and unmanned vehicle delivery company Nuro will start testing a service that drops prescriptions and other essentials to a segment of customers near Houston, free of charge. The companies are trying out new ways to serve people who can't or don't want to visit stores during the pandemic. Nuro says the service will start with an autonomous Prius fleet, then switch to custom-built delivery robots. UPS is adding peak surcharges to certain packages inside the U.S. Customers who have ordered oversized items from Amazon or Best Buy may have to pay a premium. The company is experiencing an unprecedented demand for shipping and higher costs due to the CCP virus. Peak surcharges typically occur only during busy holiday shopping periods. It's the first time in the e-commerce era that UPS has added surcharges outside of those periods. Renault workers in the Brittany region of France erupted in cheers when they found out their factory would not close. Workers have been on strike all week, anticipating they would lose their jobs. Renault instead said the plant and its 385 full-time workers would be put under strategic review while managers try to find new customers for the components they produce.
Here at China in Focus, we dedicate ourselves to bringing you truthful, unbiased reporting. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the latest updates, and see you tomorrow.